This is actually our last show of the season. For our main story, we thought we'd pull back a little bit and look at one of the biggest questions that has defined this year. How good was A Star Is Born?
I did see A Star Is Born over the weekend.
Yes, a great movie.
And it was amazing?
It was amazing.
It's still on my heart. Like, that is the thing.
It lingers. It grabs
really
you, doesn't
does.
Bradley Cooper had a hold of my soul there for a little while.
It is beyond great.
Maybe it's time to let the old ways die. Bradley Cooper, oh my gosh. Tears. Tears. Amazing. Go see the movie. Go see it.
Yeah, that guy loves it, and he's the centre for the Dallas Cowboys. No one doesn't like A Star Is Born. It's the one movie that even Neil deGrasse Tyson can't ruin.
John, I had a small issue with the film. See, if you want to know how a star is actually born, you start with a gas cloud.
Shut up! Shut up! You shut up, Neil deGrasse Tyson! Let this be the one thing about stars you don't fucking ruin! Now, unfortunately, we're not talking about A Star Is Born tonight. In fact, we're going to talk about the exact opposite of that movie. The troubling rise of authoritarian leaders around the world. Because there has been a lot of them. There are the ones that you instinctively think about, like Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping, who've been steadily consolidating their power. There's the re-election of strongmen like Hungary's Viktor Orban and Turkey's Recep Erdogan. And then there's what happened just last month in the world's fifth largest country.
Brazil has a new president, becoming the latest nation to elect a far-right leader.
Extreme right populist Bolsonaro has exalted the country's military dictatorship, advocated torture, and threatened to destroy, jail, or drive his political opponents into exile. He's calling for unity.
Is alarming, especially because in many cases people are actively choosing them. A report recently concluded that 1/3 of the world's population lives in a backsliding democracy. And that is why there's a pretty good chance that you may have been watching the news at some point this year and found yourself saying, what the fuck is happening to the world and why? So tonight, let's look at 3 common traits that authoritarian leaders tend to have to try and figure out what can make them so appealing to people and to what extent this country is in danger of heading in the same direction. And the first trait is projecting strength. Authoritarians tend to love grand displays of force, like the military parades featuring weaponry that you see in places like China, North Korea, Venezuela and Russia, where they'll even sometimes throw in a surprise musical number. Yeah, word of warning there, Russia. That's what musicals are like when you don't allow gay people. Now, experts will tell you that spectacles like those serve a purpose, as many authoritarians project strength out of a real concern that they may be seen as illegitimate, in kind of the same way that a man who is insecure about his penis buys a motorcycle, or takes up bodybuilding, or invents the Tesla. How weird is your penis, Elon? How weird is it? But projecting military strength often isn't enough. Many authoritarians tend to conflate their country's national identity with their personal identity, so they individually need to appear strong too. The most obvious example of this is Vladimir Putin, who's taken so many glamour shots, there are calendars of him. The latest ones feature him cuddling leopards, taking a shirtless ice bath and sunbathing, which... cool. But he's not alone. There's also Chechen leader Ramzan. Example of this is also actually the saddest. Just watch as the authoritarian president of Turkmenistan forces his cabinet to watch him take a gold bar and do whatever this is. Wow. When you go to work tomorrow and you're forced to laugh at your supervisor's dumb jokes, just spare a thought for the people who had to give a standing ovation to their boss for lifting a golden curtain rod. So authoritarians are obsessed with projecting strength, and they often tell their citizens that that strength is necessary to protect them. From what? Well, that actually brings us to their second major trait, a tendency to demonise enemies. Authoritarians often go out of their way to identify and sometimes manufacture a group of evildoers from whom they and they alone can save the country. In the Philippines, Rodrigo Duterte rose to power by claiming he was the antidote to drug crime. Since 2016, Human Rights Watch estimates that his drug war has killed more than 12,000 people, many of them extrajudicially. And that shouldn't really be entirely surprising, given that this was an actual message that his campaign issued at Christmas.
Alam ninyo, ako'y tao lamang. Kaya binabati ko pa rin, Merry Christmas. Kayong mga durugista, magdanakaw, mga korap, mga kriminal, at yung nagpapahirap sa Pilipino. Kaya kung ayaw ninyong minto at patuloy pa rin ang karahasan, ito na ang huli ninyong Merry Christmas.
Oh, boy! That is a hard turn in a Christmas message. Although it actually does remind me, with Thanksgiving coming up this week, I'd just like to take a moment to wish a happy Thanksgiving to everyone watching this tonight, especially... Sorry. Where was I? Oh, that's right. Authoritarians need enemies. Because one of their greatest appeals is making a complicated world simple. If you're under attack, or you've been made to feel that way, it is nice to have a charismatic individual say, fuck the rules, fuck the system, I've got this. That's an impulse that we're all vulnerable to. Take me, I believe in the separation of powers and the rule of law. But if America were to descend into a civil war and someone said, hey, what if we just let Tom Hanks figure it out? A not insignificant part of me would go, yeah, that seems nice. In fact, all praise Daddy Hanks, long live the Gump, death to his enemies. When people are frightened, they can be more susceptible to authoritarians. That is why, if a real threat doesn't present itself, strong men will sometimes make one up, often targeting a group that's persecuted to begin with, like immigrants or minorities. Viktor Orban's rightward turn in Hungary has been accompanied by stoking fear of Muslims and refugees. And when Putin was facing a dip in popularity a few years ago, he went after gay people, suggesting that homosexuality was a weapon of the EU to weaken Russia, which, yes, sounds ridiculous, but judging by this man, the message may have got across.
Russia is not Europe. We have our own conservative traditional values. At the moment, in Europe, these boundaries are being crossed because they're legalizing pedophilia. They're legalizing zoophilia. They have zoo brothels.
Wait. Do they? Are you sure about that? Because I'm pretty confident that there is no such thing as a zoo brothel. A zoo brothel is, if anything, just a regular zoo where you can slip the zookeeper $20 to leave you alone in the penguin area. And you would hope... Don't think about that if you don't like it. Just don't absorb it. Just don't absorb the idea in your mind. Because as they gain power, authoritarians will try to weaken any check on them. Journalists in authoritarian regimes are frequently threatened, imprisoned, killed, or in Putin's Russia, have tragic accidents that hopefully others may learn from. And authoritarians will also attack even more foundational checks and balances like courts and legislatures. In recent years, the structures of government in Turkey, China, Hungary and Venezuela have all been modified to consolidate power under their leaders. And as Poland becomes increasingly authoritarian, their de facto leader no longer has to worry about the country's highest judge, or indeed many other judges, because his party cleverly managed to force them out simply by lowering their retirement age. And when some judges showed up to work anyway in protest, a government official had this patronising response.
They can enter the building, they can be there, they can be there as guests, but they cannot work as judges because they are retired.
Yeah, you know what? I really don't blame those judges for being furious about that, because as we all now know, there are only two ways to really piss off a judge. One, force them into retirement, or two, ask how many brews they'd usually pound when working out with PJ and Squee. They don't like that at all. So look, projecting strength, demonising enemies and dismantling institutions are very broadly some key things that authoritarians do. And if you're wondering who would ever want a leader who does that, the answer is lots of people. Many people support Duterte, not despite his authoritarian tendencies, but because of them.
Filipinos have become too disorderly and comfortable. I think we need a president that can implement measures and discipline us.
Actually, obvious kasi... It's so obvious that the media is biased because they only show the killings. Why don't they show the other stuff he's doing, like all the infrastructure he's building?
And complaining that more attention should be paid to infrastructure. She must be the only person in the world who could hear a story about a government death squad throwing someone off a bridge and say, wait, tell me more about that bridge. Sturdy enough for a whole squad, you say? Very impressive. And look, as we have gone through each of these traits, you may have found yourself thinking, uh-oh, some of these are ringing a bell. So Unfortunately, we do now have to bring the story back around to this guy. He wanted a military parade, and when it comes to demonising enemies, he's gleefully gone after immigrants and other marginalised groups, as well as picking aggressively optional battles with Canada, the NFL, Mark Cuban, the FBI, Robert De Niro, the 2017 Emmy Awards, Puerto Rico, the Postal Service, an upscale farm-to-table restaurant in Lexington, Virginia, the NSA, LeVar Ball, the City of Chicago, the Mayor of London, the CEO of Merck, Nordstrom, and Chrissy fucking Teigen. And that is only counting the Twitter feuds. And Trump has openly expressed admiration for many of the authoritarians you've seen, including specifically praising Duterte for the unbelievable job he was doing cleaning up crime in the Philippines. Trump even once retweeted a parody account that attributed to him the quote, "It is better to live one day as a lion than 100 years as a sheep," which isn't actually something that Trump said. It's a slogan Mussolini used. That's right, it was synonymous with Pastor Hitler. And when that was pointed out to Trump, this was his response.
Did you know it was Mussolini?
It's okay to know it's Mussolini. Look, Mussolini was Mussolini. It's okay to. It's a very good quote. It's a very interesting quote, and I know it. I saw it. I saw what, and I know who said it. But what difference does it make whether it's Mussolini or somebody else? It's certainly a very interesting quote.
You want to be associated with a fascist?
No, I want to be associated with interesting quotes.